What is the next move for Noah Fifita and Arizona football? And talking some transfer portal news, could Arizona maybe get some guys back? All of that and a lot more.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. The show is brought to you today by FanDuel. You can put down $5 and you get $150 in free plays. If that bet hits, go ahead and check it out. All kinds of really, really good stuff. Okay, now, Arizona football, where are we now? We're also going to talk a little bit of Arizona basketball, but where are we right now with Arizona football? And the first thing that obviously this team has essentially lost all of its players at this point. I'm not really telling you anything that you don't know. You guys are all smart. The one man that is left standing, though, is Noah Fifita. What is going to be the deal with Noah Fifita? I think that's where I think a lot of people are, let's be honest here, you're curious about. I would guess, and again, I have no inside information on this. This is just a guess. I would kind of guess that Noah Fifita ends up coming back. Could be wrong, might not be wrong, but we will find that one out. But the first thing, though, is that you're going to need to figure out that entire wide receiver unit. And again, that's another one that I'm not really breaking any news for you on. You've got to get receivers in there. You got to get offensive linemen in there as well. That is a big part of all of this. But let's start with the wide receiver unit first. And I think with the wide receiver, the first one that you got to think about is Chris Hunter. You've got to be able to retain Chris Hunter. And so far, so good. He's the one guy that looks the part. And I think that's something that you got to be excited about. He looks the part and he was productive. If Arizona can keep him, that's obviously a very, very good thing. Not only is that a good thing, it's also something that I think Arizona can build on. Now, you've also got in another guy in Luke Wysong, who, he's a fourth-year guy out of New Mexico. His girlfriend goes here, and he's a good football player. You look at his stats last year: double-digit touchdowns, 1,000 yards. Good football player. If those are your twos, and if that is your 2 and your 3, then that's not a bad thing at all. But I think you got to get an elite level player in there, and I think that's something that this staff should be able to do. In these portals, the one thing that I think we're going to find out, and we're going to find out very, very quickly, is that there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to get good players at the wide receiver and the running back position. You got to be able to do that. There's no reason why you shouldn't, in my humble opinion. So there is obviously that to begin with. Then you've also that's kind of where you're at. Now you could say Jeremiah Patterson, our guy Jeremiah Patterson. Well, we like Jeremiah Patterson a great deal on this show, but sooner or later, you also got to get production, and you haven't really been able to get any production from him. That's obviously a concern. So we'll find out. But that is at least the wide receiver unit is the one that they've got to be able to fill out, and they got to be able to fill that one out, and they got to be able to fill that one out, I think, fairly quickly. Like I said, I like Seth Doege. I liked everything that I saw from Seth Doege. Not only did I like everything that I saw from Seth Doege, I thought that he was a guy that looked like he had a vision, looked like players that would want to play for him. So again, I am totally, totally cool with what Seth Doege has been able to, or hopefully what he'll be able to do. If he can do, some of what we think he could probably do, you're probably going to get a good player. So we'll find that out. Then at the running back spot, this is interesting for me. I love Kedrick Reesano. Kedrick Reesano is very, very good. Not only is Kedrick Reesano very, very good, he's also the dude that you watch him and you can be like, all right, that's why he was a top 10 back coming out of college, coming out of high school. Big, physical, can do a lot of different things. You like that. The thing that I think you're also got to be curious though about is what is that next step then? Who's that other guy that can kind of supplement him? Because again, we're living in the day and age too where guys are, where the transfer portal is obviously a thing, and you got to get somebody in there that can also help him out as well. And I think that's a big part of all of this. So we will find that one out. That's going to be interesting to see how this all does play out. Now, the other thing too that I think we need to look at as well is in the grand scheme of all of this, where is Arizona with the offensive line? And I think that's something that you're going to have to find out. Listen, you got some guys visiting from New Mexico. This is one with the offensive line. I was talking with a buddy about this. With the offensive line, I'm very much of the opinion that I need guys that are transferred from bigger schools. I think it's difficult to bank on somebody from, well, San Jose State or from, a variety of different places like that, just because we've seen that. I just don't think that that necessarily works. I think that that's very, very difficult to bank on. So not a huge fan of all of that. So we'll see. But like I said, if you're getting guys, and it's kind of for the D line, it's kind of the Big Bill Norton rule for me, where if you got a player that can, obviously couldn't play at Georgia, I don't really care if he can't play at Georgia, because it's kind of like with Big Bill Norton. He has to, like I said, just because they ain't playing there, you got a lot of big dudes in front of you. That doesn't mean that you can't play at this level. So that is obviously something that Arizona needs to address, in my opinion. Also, the offensive line, that's a big part of it. Figuring out what you're going to do with Noah Fifita, that's another big part of all of this as well. And the tight end, at the tight end position, what are you going to do there? Because the tight end is interesting for me here, because you got somebody in Kean Burnett that I think is a really, really good player. But the problem is with Kean's got to stay healthy, and that's Kean's got to stay healthy. That's a big part of all of this. But if Kean stays healthy, he's an NFL football player. I mean, you watch him. Scouts came through here. You all knew, or everybody knew what they were watching. He's just got to stay healthy. You saw that game against Utah, and he was maybe the best player on the field outside of T-Mac. I mean, he certainly looked like it, and he made things a lot easier for others. So there's obviously that. But like I said, Kean Burnett, he's got to change whatever it is. If they get him back, he's got to be a priority in this offense. The days of the Sam Olsons have to end, in my opinion. They just aren't good enough, and I don't think that Sam Olson will ever be good enough. But players like that, you got to get difference makers, and I think that would make things a lot easier for. I think that would make things a lot easier for the offensive line, for this unit, and for Noah Fifita. Just being able to say, hey, listen, we got some reinforcements coming in. We're going to make this one work. I'm also curious about the coaching. Situation here, and what Arizona is going to be dealing with. So we'll find that one out. But it's going to be, like I said, this is going to be fascinating, because there is a lot that this coaching staff has to address, and there's a lot that this coaching staff has to address in very, very short manner. And I think that's where we need to. That's where I think we need to focus in on all of this. How are you going to do this? Because still, at the end of the day, you also know that that we're kind of at the stage now where what you're going to be getting from some of these players, hopefully. Like, I think Luke Weissong, like I said, I think he's going to be a solid wide receiver. I don't have any doubt about that. I think Chris Hunter's got obviously some potential, but you got to get difference makers. And at least on the offensive line, you've got to get players in here who are at least passable. You've got to get, like, this unit this past year, and this is what worries me so much, is that this unit wasn't even passable, and that is something that I just don't think that you can go through another year. Generally, you don't get passable by losing players like Big Jonas Sabanea, Wendell Moy, Josh Baker, and get better. But that's kind of where we're at with all of this. So we'll see how this does all play out. It's going to be an interesting one for sure. I don't think there's really any way around that one. Now, as far as this coaching staff and how we are going to see probably some of this stuff move around, let's talk about that. But FanDuel. Check it out. Here's the deal with FanDuel. You can put down $5 and you can get $150 in free plays if that bet hits. That simple, that easy. Remember though, you have got to be a new customer. And not only do you have to be a new customer, you've got to win it. But again, you got the NFL, you got college football, you got college basketball. You've got a lot of different things that are going on right now, and that's, I think, where it's also exciting for all of this. So again, check it out. Again, with FanDuel, you also know that your money is good. And again, NFL, NBA, all of this. And that's, again, it's pretty much where it's at. So again, put down $5, get $150 in free plays if that bet hits and you're a new customer. Check it out at FanDuel.com. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, let's talk a little bit about this coaching staff and what I think. Listen, Seth Doege, I liked everything that I saw. Not only did I like everything I saw, I'm going to be curious to see what he does as far as bringing in his own players because I think there is some dead weight on this staff. We're going to talk about it. I like Alonzo Carter. As long as Alonzo Carter's here, I think Arizona will be able to get good running backs. I don't really have any. I don't have really. Excuse me. I don't have really any doubt about that. I don't have any real doubt about that. He's going to get good players, and you just look at some of that. You look at Wayshawn Jackson. I mean, guys like that probably not going to end up here, but look at it last year. I mean, I don't blame him for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt not being eligible because, again, he's not a compliant. Zoe isn't a compliance officer, so you got to take that into account. But I do think that it's going to be on this staff, though. It's going to be able to find good players, and I think he'll be able to do just that. Josh Oglesby on the offensive line. Does really, really nothing for me. I saw it last year, and I thought it was a terrible job. I think he and the defensive line coach, I just don't think that they're good enough. Especially the D line coach, we'll talk about though. But Oglesby changed up the blocking scheme, and not only did he change up the blocking scheme, he players just regressed under him. And at the end of the day, I know it's on the player, but sometimes it's also on the coach. When you have players across the board that are regressing, I've always believed that at some level that's also on the coach. A guy like Wendell Moy shouldn't just forget how to play football. A guy like Jacob Manu shouldn't just forget how to play football. We've seen it. We know that they're good. So Oglesby, I'll be interested to see what they do with him. Also, I'll be interested to see what they do with Bobby Wade. I think Bobby Wade is actually a pretty good wide receiver recruiter. The problem with Bobby Wade though, they weren't able to hold on to any of these guys, and nobody really developed this past season. Chris Hunter developed a little bit. I will get that. So there's that. Now, on the defensive side of the football, then Joe Somalo, if you bring, I don't, this is an odd one for me. I don't understand the need to bring back Joe Somalo. I will never understand the need because Joe Somalo, he's wildly unpopular with the players. He is not somebody that I think did a very good job. You watch him, he doesn't exactly inspire much confidence. Somalo is one that I just don't get why Brennan is hitching his wagon to. And I think that that there's just something about that you're like, okay, we need to look at this and be like, all right, what's going on here? Because he was one that thought that Chuba May and Big Bill Norton were essentially the same player. I mean, you can't watch both those two and say that those are the same player. You can't watch a guy like you can't basically tell a Deuce Davis that, yeah, you're a middle linebacker or whatever the case may be. It's awful. So there's obviously that. Somalo, I would like to see somebody else in there, but I would imagine Brennan's going to keep him. Now listen, Danny Gonzalez is the how do I put this? He is, talk about kind of failing upward. I mean, the linebacker unit was awful, as was the special teams unit, but he's going to be the DC. But it's maybe not all bad. Um, it's maybe not all bad because if you talk to ASU people, they were actually okay with him as the DC. Um, and there's something to that. I mean, so he's got a decent track record, but you also have a guy that is, like I said, he wasn't good this year, and I think you listen. If Seth Doege won kind of that press conference, I don't think that Danny Gonzalez wins that press conference, bringing him in. Just kind of the way it is. I don't see that really being the case with Mr. Seth Doege. We will find, or excuse me, with Danny Gonzalez, we'll find out. Dwayne Aquina, if he stays, I'm obviously more than okay with him in the defensive backs role. We will find that one out. But the coaching staff, if basically the only move is you bring in Seth Doege, I don't know that that's really understanding the gravity of the situation here. And I think that's something that you need to keep in mind here. Now, where is Arizona now with when it comes to players that could possibly help out on the defensive side? You got a Chancellor Owens coming in. We'll find out what he can do, obviously, from Northwestern State. You're going to have a lot of different guys coming in. Now, Jason Shear thinks that it's actually going to surprise some people. I don't know what that necessarily means, though, because surprise compared to what? I'm not beating up Shear for that. I'm just saying I don't know exactly what that means because, you know, I think we're kind of at a stage, too, where the staff really didn't do a very good job last year, obviously. But the one thing about it, though, is that you also have playing time to be able to offer. You got playing time, and you got a lot of playing time to be able to offer. So we will find we'll find that out. We'll find out where that all plays. Now, we're going to talk a little bit of basketball here at the end, and we're going to talk about it later on in the week. That was obviously a very, very depressing game. But as far as Arizona football goes, and I've been asking this, the biggest thing, too, is I need to know what you want to do. And at least with Seth Doege, I get the sense that you know what you want to do. I'm going to be curious to see this offense. If I'm Noah Fifita, I think I probably have the highest NIL value coming back to Arizona. This community loves him, and I think you have an OC that that gets it. So we'll see how that plays out. The thing about it is, will you be able to protect Noah? And I think the other question too that we're going to talk about a lot tomorrow is, can you get some of these players back that have entered the portal? We will find that one out. I'm not sure, but it wouldn't surprise me if you are able to get some of these guys back. Listen, this was an atrocious season this past year for Arizona, and I think everybody is always going to think the grass is greener, especially with what we just watched this past year. There's really no doubt. There's really no way around that. There's really no way around that. This was just absolutely atrocious what Arizona fans and what these players had to go through. Nobody signed up for that. So there is that, and like Brent Brennan said, he understands it. He understands the whole process behind it. So there's that. Now I wanted to get into wanted to talk a little bit of basketball here in this last segment as well, because I think that there are some things that we need to address. And that is going to be something that well, let's talk about it here. But first, college football on TNT. It's that time of the year. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoffs begins December 21st, my birthday, starting with the college football playoff kickoff presentation by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern. And again, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers looked to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch college football presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. All right, check it out, though. All kinds of good stuff, as you can easily tell just by that read. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Okay, now, let's talk a little bit about where we are at now when it comes to Arizona basketball. That was an epic collapse. There's no other way to put it. That was an epic collapse for Arizona, and not where. And that just felt kind of like a season. That just felt kind of. That just felt kind of like a season-ending type loss, where that was just a gut punch. And the problems are across the board. The first problem is Caleb Love's not good. Whatever happened to Caleb Love, you need the Caleb Love back last year that was a gunner. That was the dude that was looking to get all of his, looking to get his shots, looking to get all of that. You need that Caleb Love back. If you don't get that Caleb Love back, then this season is basically over. You needed him to be an All-American type, and he hasn't been close to an All-American type. You needed him to be the kind of guy that was going to be a massive difference maker. He hasn't been close to a massive difference maker. Not only has he not been close to a massive difference maker, he's been kind of the dude that he's just been out there. Whatever it is, whatever got into his head, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's been a massive issue, and Arizona's not going to be good if he continues to play like that. The other one, KJ Lewis, not been good. This is another one. I'm not breaking any insight. I'm not breaking any information. These dudes haven't been good. They haven't been close to good enough for Arizona basketball to be able to get to where they need to be able to get. These guys were supposed to be difference makers. KJ can't dribble. KJ's a turnover machine. The other one, too, Trey Townsend. He's been awful. I think at some point you also got to figure out what you want to do about Trey Townsend, because he doesn't get any rebounds. He's a turnover machine. He's just not been good. There's just really no other way around it. He's just been bad. And I think at some point you got to start looking and saying, listen, man, we got to plan for the future. We got to play a Carter Bryant. We got to get somebody like that in there. And if you don't do that, then I think that you're just kind of playing with fire. We're going to talk about that more. But recruits see this. If Carter Bryant's not allowed to play through his mistakes, but a guy like Trey Townsend is allowed to just mess up time and time and time again, recruits see that. They're not dumb. And Carter Bryant's a popular guy on the circuit. There's no other way around it. He's a popular dude. People like him, and not only do people like him, you also see him and you're like, okay, he's a guy that he's got upside. Again, if other guys are going to be allowed to play through their mistakes, then he needs to be allowed to play through his mistakes too, especially too because he's got upside and he's got options. You lose Carter Bryant after this season, you're in a lot of trouble, because the one high-level player that you bring in, he bounces. You've got to understand the politics of all of this as well. And Tommy should understand the politics of this. If he doesn't understand the politics of it, then we're in worse shape than I think a lot of people thought. It's pretty much that simple. But again, that was a very dispiriting loss. The only person that's basically been good for Arizona this year has been Jaden Bradley. Outside of Jaden Bradley, this team is all the players. Nobody's really been good, and there's just too many stiffs on the roster. There's too many guys that just aren't good enough. And Matt, at the end of the day, that comes back to Tommy Lloyd. I like Tommy Lloyd a great deal, but he's got to figure some things out here, because his evaluation and this roster management is just not something that Arizona basketball should be seeing. In fact, it's been subpar. It's been bad. I mean, any term you want to use is basically applicable to what we're talking about here. It's got to be better. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's just got to be better, and we'll find that one out. We'll find that one out from there, and we're going to see, because Tommy Lloyd's a smart guy. This also feels kind of like a line in the sand that, all your good equity is, like Jody Ayler put, it's kind of going out the window this year. And you've got to be able to change that one up, because this team so far is bad. They don't play hard, and not only do they not play hard, they don't. It's just not a smart team. There's too many dumb turnovers, too many just things that you're like, okay, this isn't what it's supposed to look like. But we're going to talk about that more tomorrow. We're going to talk about more transfer portal names. We are going to talk about a lot of different things, because, well, with Arizona athletics, there's never a dull moment, there's never an off day, and there will always be something that we get to talk about. That's part of it. It's like I always tell people, though, this is the life that we signed up for, so embrace it. Embrace it. Okay, but like I said, that's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. We got a lot of different things to get into, but as always, Very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Bear down, back the A, even in the tough times, and we will be back with you tomorrow.